Oh,
Good
hey.
morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
How's it
Hey,
going?
everybody. How are you doing today?
Welcome to another episode of Sex Nerd Podcast.
Yes. Yeah, we actually didn't announce this one formally because we both have had very crazy schedules and it was like, can we throw this together today? And you're heading out like on a plane in a few hours. So,
Yeah, I'm doing that thing.
yeah, and
Needed
I got to
it.
go out of town for a couple hours today. So, crazy
Yeah,
day, crazy day. Yep.
should be fun though.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
headed to
So,
Indiana?
no, actually, I'm going to South Carolina.
Oh, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
My new lady friend invited me to go spend the holidays with her and her
Ah.
family. So I'm gonna do that.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
should be
Very
fun.
nice.
I wasn't
Good for
doing
you.
anything anyway. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Cool. So what have you been up to?
Nothing, lifting weights. I did a strongman. I did my first strongman competition, which
And
were, well, I was the only one in my weight class, which
oh.
for the people who don't know is what I will describe as big as fuck. And it was an amateur company, so there's not a lot of super big monsters like me.
Right.
Um, I actually knew the guy who was going to come and compete. Um, we matched on, or we matched. We
Have
found
you
each
been
other on
tendering a
Instagram,
lot?
right? Big guy, lumberjack, sexualing. No, he's a big dude too.
Lumber sexual.
We were talking over Instagram, and he got sick, which sucks. Like he got COVID, and he actually was really scary because he got put in the hospital. And he's an athlete.
Oh.
He's a big dude,
Yeah,
but
but you know
he
what?
is
It
a
hits everybody different.
he is a really big man. He outweighs me by a lot. So
Yeah.
so even though he has a lot of muscle, um, it's still taxing to the body. So it yeah, it was a lot. But he's healthy. He's fine. He
He's
beat
better.
it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good, good.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
our hospital capacity has been holding pretty steady, which makes me feel good about the people that do get sick. Is we're not even close to danger zone, and that's really good. And I follow the infection rate, public health person, and our RT went down to 0.99 2 days ago.
nice.
Yeah, and we were at like 2,800 and so forth. And even though our testing volume was like 18,000, we only had 1,900 positive. So our RT is doing really well, and the mask mandate. I hope our RT is a result of the mask mandate, and people overall have been wearing masks
Yeah.
a lot
And
that I've been able to see.
I've been having these conversations. Of course, everyone's having conversations about COVID, and
Yeah.
our governor. I know he's trying, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But holy shit, man! Like every time I go out in town, not the Strip or Fremont, everyone's wearing a mask. I rarely, if ever, see anyone not wearing a mask. They might be not wearing it as well as they should, but they're still trying. You
Mm-hmm.
go on the Strip, nobody's fucking wearing a mask.
Oh.
It's like, dude, you can't yell. It's almost like the tourists are the favorite child who gets
Yeah.
away with everything, and all of us people who live here are like,
Mm-hmm.
the stepchildren
Mm-hmm.
that like do no wrong. I won't say we do no wrong, not do no
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
know what I mean. And I
yeah,
feel like we're constantly being yelled at for what the tourists are doing. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
come
Yeah,
on.
I have to say probably a good 85% of the people that come to the museum, actually closer to 90, are great. There's no
Yeah,
problem. They come in with the mask up over the bridge of their nose and under their chin, and we don't have to say anything. And I'd say probably the last month it's been really good.
yeah,
But you have those, and so far, all the people that give us problems are from California.
of
We
course.
had an incident last week. We had a group of 8, and I had to reprimand them 2 or 3 times. And they weren't just not, having them pulled down or whatever, just hanging on the ear, running around the lobby, waiting for their other friends, drunk off their asses. And well, I can't talk about it now because it's probably going to become a legal issue. But let's just say they vomited all over the place.
Oh, geez.
And one of them was sneezing uncontrollably. So I kicked them out and I refunded their tickets. And they harassed me for 20 minutes. Just abusive and horrible. Go lay down. And just it was probably one of the worst experiences we've had in months. Yeah. And these entitled, just, you know, and this is the thing we know about being Las Vegans. People come here and they shit on the locals.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I agree. I know he's trying to do his best, but get control of the tourists.
Get control of the tourists. You know, and he was freaking out that it was spreading to the smaller towns. It's like, well, yeah, that's what trends do.
Because people are, you know, the locals or these folks are coming into town from Pahrump and stuff, interacting with the tourists, and then going back to Pahrump and getting sick.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, in defense of the tourists, to some degree, I went to Pahrump about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And between one of the offices that I went into where 1 out of 8 people was wearing a mask there, and they were all over the age of 60, and people on the street, you know, like with flags, like Trump flags, anti-mask flags. I went to Burger King to get a chicken sandwich on my way out of town. Yeah, the gal at the drive-through had her mask like right here. I'm like, oh, I gotta get back to the city. I can't be here. Well, and you know what though? Their infection rate. I look at the county infection rates. Pahrump or Nye County, their infection rate was almost 30%, and ours in Clark County is 19%.
Yeah, well, because there for a while, those smaller towns. So those who don't know, Pahrump is a small town outside of Vegas. Yeah. It's where the closest brothels are.
Well, that are closed.
No, closed. But that's where they are. So that's what makes Pahrump popular. Or I guess notorious or whatever.
Notorious.
Infamous. What there for a while though, the smaller towns weren't having any infection. So
very low.
Or very low. So they didn't feel like they needed to adhere to the mask mandate because they didn't. I mean, a small town of like 1,000 people that no tourists go to, like it's probably not going to have that same effect. But now you're starting to see those infection rates grow because of what you're saying. People are traveling, you know, to Vegas and Reno and Carson City and stuff like that.
Well, and then they're going inside.
Yeah.
You know, and like at the museum, we've avoided infections so far, but I've been pretty strict, and I'm also insistent on, even in the cold weather, we keep doors open in the lobby for ventilation, right?
That'll help.
Luckily our winter has not been that cold.
Not yet.
So it
was like 73 yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some 50 degrees and stuff like that, but we're closed at night when it's really cold, and during the day it gets to 50, 45, 50, sometimes 60. So it's not that bad, you know? But at our sister properties, we've had some infections because their doors are closed.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're a museum, so there's no touching and people don't have to lower their masks. But if you go to the store or the club, the bar, well, there is, you know. So I don't know about bigger museums that you have to be packed to stay open, but our museum, that's always been sparse and people, because it's sex, stay away from each other anyway. Yeah. We've actually been in a really unique position to navigate this pandemic and be able to keep our doors open. And granted, we have had some very generous help from the county. But you know, we've been okay to keep the doors open. Even, you know, we're skating by, but we haven't had to close other than when there was a mandatory shutdown. So that's nice.
That's good.
Yeah. My dog is just looking at me. So anyway,
so going back to your original question, yes. I won. I won.
You won.
I was the only one in my weight class. Yeah.
Okay.
So technically, I won.
Yay!
But it was a fun experience.
Nice.
I think I'm going to keep doing it again. I'm starting to grow what's called the power belly, which
Oh,
is for you don't know, it's a belly that a lot of power lifters and strong men get when you put your body under a lot of strain.
oh, really? It's
Yeah.
not roid belly.
Oh no, I don't.
Okay.
I don't take
No.
steroids.
I'm not saying whether you do or not. To me, is irrelevant. It's more like there's roid belly, but I've never heard of strongman belly.
Well,
So
it's
is that a
power
different
belly.
kind of belly? Power
Well,
belly.
it's just where your stomach kind of gets bigger outward.
Okay.
Like I don't have abs, but you can see my abdominal muscles, um, even though my stomach sticks out.
Why
So
does that happen with strongmen competitors?
because when you lift, like when you say you do squat, right, or
Yeah.
deadlift, or
Yeah.
any lift really, when you a lot of say bodybuilders or different regular athletes will like you take a breath in and then you blow out when you're doing the movement.
Uh-huh.
But for powerlifting and when you start lifting more and more weight, you hold your breath through the entire lift.
Oh.
So you're what's called you build thoracic pressure is what it's called. So your stomach is it's kind of like you brace for like if someone's going to punch you in the stomach and you
Yeah.
kind of brace for it. You're
Yeah.
doing that through the entire movement and you're
Okay.
holding your breath underneath it. So it creates a lot of muscle build in your abdominal area.
Okay.
And it's not just forward; it's like
Yeah. I've seen power
it's big.
belly. Yeah.
So I'm starting to get that.
In like weightlifting, like Iron Man kind of, not Iron Man, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, with bodybuilding.
Mr. Universe kind of stuff. If someone's using steroids, they get a certain kind of stomach. You can tell it's called roid belly versus natural. But it looks a little different. It's more narrow, right? Not wide. So
yeah. This is growing out.
Out.
Not just getting as big as possible.
There you go. Well, congratulations.
All right, so today we have two things, and we're a little behind on them, but that's okay. I think it's good to, some of the first one didn't really get a lot of attention, but the second one, it got a lot of attention. One of them. We don't say first or second.
Right.
So let's real quick because it's more of a ranting one anyway. I want to talk about the Wall Street Journal article by Joseph Epstein about Dr. Jill Biden, about her dropping the doctor.
Right.
The doctor title. So for those who were not paying attention to this, which is fine, it's okay. This guy, this person in the Wall Street Journal said that the new first lady should drop the title of doctor because she used it. She has a doctor of education.
An EDD.
In EDD, and that it's pretentious. And he goes in this, you're not quite following his logic. So the only real argument that I can see is that at some point he, with a bachelor's degree, taught at a university for 30 years, something like that. Why he taught at a university with a bachelor's and then wrote for the Wall Street Journal, I have no idea. So it probably was in communications or journalism or something like that, which is fine. You can do that. And he complained about the falling standards of PhD or of dissertations and PhD students while he was at this university. I think it was Northwestern or something like that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Northwestern.
And I guess Dr. Biden got her ED 15 years ago. So he was claiming that it's not the same as a PhD, 40 years ago, back in my day when you had to learn Italian and all these foreign languages and learn how, to all these different scientific thingies before you could get, philosophy crap. It's like, dude, and then his other argument He
Wait,
talks
wait.
about
He
honorary
starts
PhD.
he starts talking about philosophy.
No,
Okay.
he's just saying that PhDs were more rigorous back when he was there, or when he was younger, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting. He never pursued one, but anyway.
right, and then he goes in this long complaint about honorary PhDs. Like he's trying to draw a connection between honorary PhDs and Dr. Biden's EDD. Um, and I'm just like, I don't. EDD sounds terrible. It sounds like too close to ED.
I know it sounds like erectile dysfunction.
Dr. Biden does not have ED. She
Well,
has
she's
an
not. It's
E.
going to be hard for her to have that, but okay.
Well, technically, I guess she does have ED because she doesn't have one at all. Anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, I don't understand this person's argument other than just pure like
He's pissy.
just pissy. Just who gives a shit, dude? Like who gives a shit that this woman who has an ED, who wrote a dissertation,
Right.
is calling herself doctor?
Well,
Like,
okay, so so I don't know about him. It just sounds like he has an issue, but and I'm kind of like, well, if you don't like that she calls herself doctor, go get your own PhD and call yourself a doctor, or don't. It's up to you.
Or
Like,
don't.
why are you care?
Yeah.
But there's this misconception, I think, in the modern era that you have to have an MD to be called doctor. Okay, that somehow you only qualify to be calling doctor because you have an MD. And what most people don't know is that the doctor originated in the PhD
Mm-hmm.
or the granting of PhDs. I want to say 200 or 300 years ago in Germany. Okay, and before that, in philosophical musings, keep going back, right? But formally, it was issued in Germany to PhD awardees.
Which,
It
if you don't
wasn't
know what that
until
is, that's a doctorate of philosophy.
Doctor of Philosophy, right? Okay, and it has its roots in philosophy that you can keep going back in history and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I think I'd have to look it up, but I think it wasn't until like the late 1800s or I think it was like
Probably.
mid to late 1800s roughly, where medical practitioners started being awarded MDs, and because they wanted the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Validity or
Notoriety.
the
bragging
notoriety
rights.
or whatever. Yeah.
Prestige.
The prestige of doctor,
Mhm.
they equated it to the same level of inquiry and learning as the PhD. But let's not be mistaken. It's the PhD that came first. And that's
Right.
where the title of doctor comes from.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I didn't do any research onto EDDs, but you have DOs, you have EDDs, you have doctors of dentistry, you have osteopath doctors. Those are bone doctors. I'm not talking about like naturopaths or anything, but a bone doctor. There are all kinds of doctorates.
Right.
And they tend to be, you have reached a certain level of expertise in your field to be awarded this. That's generally based on some kind of university requirement or whatever. And in contrast, honorary degrees are awarded to people who have done a certain amount of life's work to qualify as having as much experience as the university studies in their equivalency. But because you didn't do the university study, you're going to get an honorary doctorate for your life's work, etc. Right?
Right.
So the honorary doctorates aren't as rigorous academically, and that's not what they are meant to communicate. No. Okay. But for him to actually kind of equate a doctorate that was the result of a dissertation certified by a university and an honorary doctorate makes no logical sense.
No, it doesn't. His arguments are complete buffoonery.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's probably never going to see this, but yeah, it's complete buffoonery. It's almost like he got drunk.
I don't care if he does.
Yeah, it's almost like he got drunk and was like, fuck that. She thinks she's so
This
pretentious.
bitch, yeah.
She's a bitch. That
Yeah.
pretentious cunt's going to be our
Yeah.
first lady. She thinks she's
Yeah.
a doctor. Wall Street Journal. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. And it's written like that. It's It's almost like written like he's talking, and which sounds terrible. Anyway, so yeah,
there's
so there's
and then there's pissy pieces.
Right. And
between the two every once, I mean, we all have our challenges and stuff. And I think we all have to, if we have a pissy piece, we got to go, okay, let me step back for a minute because I think I'm just too pissed.
Yeah. Right? And granted, he has the right to have his opinion.
Of course.
Of course.
But it's not based in any kind of
logic.
Fact.
No. It's just anecdotal from his experience as a teacher, and I guess his frustrations with honorary PhDs. Yeah. Okay.
So be frustrated with honorary doctorates, fine.
Yeah, you could
then make the article about that.
Right. Like, she's not an honorary doctorate. She earned her doctorate in education.
Well, and you and I were talking about this before we started. I saw, and you probably saw this too, is people started reading her dissertation. And we're like, this is really lame. It's not intellectually rigorous. Rah, 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 rah. Okay. So just so people understand, when you complete your first doctorate degree, okay, and I have 2, that's practice.
Yeah. Well, in your dissertation nobody's very rarely does anybody's dissertation actually come out to be a book or anything remotely interesting. A lot of times you're just doing it to get out of the way so you can then go on and write your second book, which is the more interesting one.
Yeah. Your efforts towards writing your PhD are practice, from my perspective, for you to be able to not only learn to, but skillfully be able to produce journal papers.
Yeah, or
it's practice for you to get published, which after graduation can take like a decade. Some sooner, but that's it. Yeah, 5 to 10 years, because you're learning to, your dissertation is sort of that first effort of refining your argument academically. Okay, so this whole it's just a shitty dissertation. Duh, it's the first one.
It's a dissertation. It's supposed to be shitty.
It's supposed to be shitty.
As someone who is currently dissertating, yes, they're shitty.
Yeah.
And they're just to show that you. So. Yeah, it's just to show that you know kind of what you're talking about in your field. So they're not just giving this to every person who, picks up a 101 book or something.
Or goes on to Google.
Yeah. So
you have to show some competency to argue your point logically and what the structure looks like. I mean, for me, writing my dissertations was about learning structure and methodology and how to write it properly and so forth. Like, that's, to me, it was all practice so that I knew what I was doing for later on when I wanted to do other research. Yeah, that was it. I've gotten the same crap from some people where they put my doctor in quotation marks. Right. And the most reaction I get out of that is an eye roll, because generally it comes from people who either don't know me, don't care to know me, or are just pissed off.
Yeah.
Because, I challenged them in some way or another, and I could really give a shit about any of those people. You want to know what it took to finish that? Okay. But if you're not even going to take the time, then why do I care what you think?
My thing. Exactly. So my thought, and I've had these conversations with people that, I want to finish to get the letters. And we belong to that couple listservs and people talking about, I have them call me by my first name, my students, stuff like that. You're right. I have my students. They don't call me Mr. They just call me by my first name. If they want to be formal, they can call me Mr. However, there are moments that I fantasize about when I get the PhD. And I don't want people to call me doctor or professor or anything like that. It's just Josh, right?
Yeah.
But there's the moment where someone's being super condescending and they're like, blah, 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 Mr. Coram. Actually, it's Dr. Coram.
Right.
That's the guy. This is the guy you do that to.
Yeah,
this is the guy. Jill Biden goes, you know what? I'm going to be first lady. You can call me Jill. But no, Joseph Epstein, you have to call me Dr. Biden. From now on, period, you have to do it because you stuck your foot in your mouth and you overstepped.
Yeah.
Now you have to call me Dr. Biden all the time because it's condescending tricks like you the reason why I got that I like the title. That's it.
Well, and you that is not an uncommon fantasy. And I can't speak for other people that have PhDs, but I've certainly done that. But it's been in the context of when I've had not necessarily a male colleague, but a male coworker. It's been gendered mostly, where I'm called Vic or Victoria, or I've been, called by my name condescendingly, or worse. I mean, I tend to let that roll off my back. Or when I get okay, honey, or okay, baby, or okay, sweetheart. And then I go, actually, it's doctor. And then they go,
Dr. Sweetheart, thank you.
And it's always, in my experience, it's been general 90% men. I've had some women do that, and I've done the same thing where I've said, actually, it's doctor, but it's from men where it's just like it seems sweetheart or honey, and it's like, and trying to tell me that they know my field better than I do.
Right.
And I'm perfectly willing to learn. I love to learn. I mean, I'm in the middle of a project right now where I'm learning a lot. But I also have a huge skill set that I'm bringing to the effort. So I'm just refining my skill set. And there's nothing wrong with being open to learning. But when you have someone like this guy, okay, honey, like,
yeah, I think he even calls her hun.
No, I think kiddo.
Kiddo, that's what it is. Thank you, kiddo.
And that is such. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. Why men resort to the infantilization of women in order to put them in their place when they are intimidated, and they redirect, and they project that onto them as she's the arrogant one. This default to girlifying is what I like to call it. Women, even like I get pissy when someone calls me, "Hey girl." I'm like, do you know how old I am? The last time I was called girl was like 38 years ago. Do you know that? Don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm a woman and well past the age of even mistaking me for a girl. See, I'm soapboxing again. But I see people do that to women all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why we're friends.
You soapbox, go ahead.
This is such a common default. When I read that he said, okay, kiddo, maybe, and I'm like, I'm going to breathe out. I'm going to breathe and count to 10. I'm going to breathe and count to 10. It is such.
And I don't like to jump on bandwagon. I don't like to do that. I don't like the, they call it contrary. And I didn't read the article first about it. Saw stuff show up on my Facebook of people reacting to it. And I'm like, he probably, because I'm a benefit of the doubter a lot of the times. I'm like, he probably did this or that. And then I read it and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Everything everyone was saying was completely justified. I'm like, holy crap! Really, dude? Just what you're saying, that because men, you're right, men do that. I don't. Yeah, we do. We infantilize, we girlify, as you called it, and it's terrible. We do that, and
the thing is, if you actually called us women, y'all get laid more.
Yeah, I run into that a little bit too. There's kind of a class thing that goes along with that.
Oh,
Whenever I go back home, sometimes I'll run into people that I knew back in the day.
mhm.
And this sounds so
Hey,
pretentious, but
girl.
it's like they find out that I'm getting this PhD and I've done all these things, and they feel the need to knock you down a peg or two,
Oh,
or attempt to, or
oh,
try to.
oh,
Be like, oh, I remember the time you farted. I remember that. And you're like, yeah, dude, I remember that too. It's something that we do, and this I feel like is an example of that, of
okay.
like the person who goes on to do these great
Okay,
things,
yeah, yeah.
and they go back to their hometown,
Yeah,
and the guy who like is still working at the car wash
yeah,
or the gas station
yeah,
is like, trying to bring this person down for their
yeah.
success, and I'm like, what do you do? What are you doing?
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
you?
I find that there's two kinds of people, and well, I don't want to black and white this. So there probably maybe there's more, but I think predominantly there seems to be two kinds of people that do that, right? There's
Mhm,
those that infantilize and put you down, right?
mhm,
And then there are those that like attach themselves to you because you have succeeded, and they want to sort of ride your coattails, and they want to exploit you and your success for their own personal gain to make themselves look good. I was actually just yesterday, I think I was talking to my sweetie, and it was just like, uh, telling him how much I appreciated the fact that our connection wasn't based on anything external. It wasn't based on my career, his career, our finances,
mhm.
our social standing, anything external. It was just because we really like each other. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. And that is it. It's not that easy to find that, right? Because you have
sure.
especially if you're a successful person, you have those two variances of people that are either they want to, knock you down a peg, or they want to attach themselves to you for their own benefit, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it he's not contributing. This author of this piece is not
Wow.
contributing in any way, shape, or form. What I think we all should be focusing on, especially in these times, is to connect with other people authentically. That isn't based in what our titles are or whatever. And I know I'm like starting to
Mhm.
opine, like a yogi, but uh, you know, uh, stop it. At the end of the day, I'm just Victoria. I'm not Dr. Victoria. I go home and I watch TV and I snuggle with my dog. And when I'm it's just Victoria, and you're just Josh, and that's fine. But yeah, I get the fantasy. I totally get it because I get to actually do that, and I do. And maybe I shouldn't, but I do because come on, stop. Don't
Yeah,
project your insecurities onto me.
right.
Right? Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, I know.
Speaking of insecurities,
God damn it.
great segue to our next piece.
Yes. So
So,
there was this. Okay. So and I know I'm dominating the conversation. I apologize.
no, take the reins. You got it.
Okay. So, and most people that have watched me over the course of the years, um, and as a part of my studies with necrophilia and stuff, when I was trying to determine if I could actually come up with some kind of tool to predict perpetrators, and if they had certain like personality traits that would indicate that they might potentially offend in the future, right? Because I wanted to add to the literature for, say, criminal investigators or so forth, to help prevent crime and help prevent people being traumatized and so forth, and violence. And I stumbled upon this dynamic that taught me that there was a difference between paraphilic people and people who perpetrate. And those are oftentimes people with what are called cluster B disorders. And there's four types generally accepted by the medical community, which is borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder, or psychopathy. Okay. And so
hold on. I think it's important to some people might jumping on this. So paraphilias are things I hate because I don't hate them. I
right,
just hate the
the
categorization of them.
categorization. Yeah.
It's the categorization of sexual behavior
Yeah.
within the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is the roadmap that psychology uses to tell you that you're a crazy person.
Well,
Um,
okay. And then in the most recent update, they did distinguish between
crazy and
disordered and simply having a sexual variant or a preference.
right. But in the past, they didn't.
Right.
It was usually because if
It was
you
used to stigmatize.
participated in this, it was used to stigmatize.
Yeah.
But now it's a disorder. You can have a paraphilic disorder.
Well, but you can also just have a paraphilia, and they distinguish between the two in the DSM. This most recent.
Yeah, but why?
I know. And Charles Moser makes that argument. Why categorize them at all? I get it. And that's the conversation we're having in sexology. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So just to clarify for you guys listening, or hopefully you're listening, that's the difference. So now, what makes that?
Okay. So I'm trying to educate the public on cluster B disorders, and I wasn't too well versed in narcissistic personality disorder. I focused more on borderline and on antisocial personality disorder as a part of my studies in necrophilia, and violent crime. But recently I've gotten more interested in narcissistic personality disorder for a variety of reasons. And across all of these disorders, there are some dynamics that are similar, that manifest, which are a lack of empathy, a tendency towards victimhood, and so forth and so on. And so this is why it piqued my interest. Now, it's not really, they make a differentiation in here between cluster B disorders and this what do they call it? Like it's a personality trait.
Yeah.
Right?
Or no,
it's not a trait.
It's a personality. It's a personality.
It's a personality. That's consistent over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are calling it TIV, which is the tendency for interpersonal victimhood. So it's the T tendency interpersonal victim, right?
That's right.
And I think, let me make sure I got the paper right here.
Get the TIV. Get the TIV.
Tendency for interpersonal victimhood. Yeah. Okay. So, and their abstract is basically they did a series of studies and looked at other studies. And they used various methodologies to determine this. But they noticed that there's 4 aspects to this personality type. One is need for recognition, one is moral elitism, one is a lack of empathy, and the last one is rumination, about focusing the attention on one's distress. Okay.
Right. But
now that sounds a lot like cluster B disorders, doesn't it?
Themselves are fast in regards to this whole victimhood personality. So we're moving beyond victimhood mentality or the culture of victimhood. Now it is a personality. Now we have the victim type of person, not just a behavior. It's a type of person.
Right.
I went fuzzy.
Now that has some. That's your internet. This has a number of implications, because the question, and I asked this on one of our listservs, you now have a question of kind of a chicken and egg question. If you're talking about victim culture, so what's its origins? Is it that individuals with this personality dynamic, this personality type, gather together, create a group that then wraps itself up into a victim culture dynamic or structure? Or
that's a good one.
Is it a group that has legitimate intentions? In other words, people who are oppressed, disadvantaged, and so forth, and attracts people with this personality type? That's what I want to know. And we don't have an answer. We don't have an answer yet.
We don't. Right. From that larger culture perspective, it could be both. It could be this group of people got together and they attract and they created their
Mhm.
framing of their group, and now they attract people that are more likely to see themselves as victims, the more personality groups.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
really fascinating. I
Yeah.
think it's important to dive into a couple of these. So the core components of TIV, to be a TIV, you know, I hope that catches. Don't be such a TIV. Oh my God.
Yeah. You're
Sorry,
just
it's
feeding
terrible.
their self-identified stigma now. Okay, stop.
That's right. Well, it's good to have nicknames. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Jesus.
The core components to TIV, the need for recognition, like you mentioned earlier. So, the need for recognition, whereby individuals have a high level of need for their victimization to be seen and recognized by others. I think that's pretty fascinating there. Moral elitism. This is seeing oneself as morally pure or immaculate, and seeing those who oppose, criticize, or victimize oneself as completely and totally immoral and unjust. A lack of empathy, which is the third one, I think is my favorite. Having little empathy or concern for the suffering of others because your victimhood is so much greater than the suffering of others also includes the entitlement to act selfishly and harmfully towards others without recognizing their pain or experience.
Mm.
And then lastly, rumination, a strong tendency to brood and remain extremely fixated on times, ways, and relationships where they experience victimization and being taken advantage of.
Right.
These
Mhm.
these are amazing, and you see them everywhere.
Yeah.
And my concern is that this is going to be a rallying cry for these people. That suddenly, not only are they suffering from depression and anxiety and all other general mental health
Yeah, but it doesn't say
things,
that they are necessarily more inclined towards that.
but now they can point their finger at something and use it as
Oh.
a weapon. I have TIV. Don't yell at me because I'm a victim, or I see myself as a victim. I have TIV. I can't
I
help
don't know
it.
that you can prevent people who already want to self-victimize from doing that. I don't know that you
Yeah,
can prevent them from weaponizing it because they're already weaponizing their victimhood to begin with.
but now they can point to psychology and have a little backing on it
And see,
rather than just being their own anecdotal experience. Now they can say, "I have a personality disorder,"
okay, and
or
then
"It's my
yes,
personality."
and they'll use like throw out that you're ableist and so forth. But the contrast to that is, in their defense, is that the opposite is also possible, where someone says, "Well, you have this, personality type. You don't actually have a problem, and so I don't have to recognize your oppression or
Mm,
uh, your marginalization." Right? So we have
yeah,
both sides that could
uh,
potentially be weaponized. Yeah.
right. And I think it's important here,
Mhm.
now that we're having this conversation,
Yeah.
that um, we are not talking about people who are actual victims.
No.
Now, that Venn diagram could overlap. That's not
Sure.
what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes, you can be
But
a victim.
they spell that out in this paper, that people who are victims and who have been traumatized aren't necessarily more inclined to have this personality characteristic,
Mhm.
this consistent personality type, right? Those are
Yeah.
separate and apart. They can overlap, but one does not lead to the other. And those that have TIV might never have been victimized by anyone.
But isn't that dangerous to say?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. And that's the rub right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because in
Because
their
how do you
mind,
define
in
that?
their
Like,
minds,
I'm a survivor of
right.
both sexual assault and domestic violence, but I consider myself a survivor and an advocate for others to have a
Hmm.
voice. Like the concept of I was a victim, but victimhood, they don't tie together
Yeah.
for me. But how do you define someone's trauma?
Right.
Do you look at uh, PET scans or brain waves, or where's the determinant in how you define trauma? You know, if it's, well, someone said something insulting to you and you were severely traumatized, versus someone locked you out of the house and waved your phone in your face and laughed at you while you were standing outside in 40-degree weather, or someone that punched you in the face. Like, which one is the determinant here?
Look, we can all agree that getting your Starbucks order fucked up is terrible. It's so painful. I'm kidding. Yes. No, I agree. Like, how do you, yeah. What's the barometer? There's no,
there are slights in I mean, even my sweetie and I, we've had disappointments with each other. But the thing is where maybe I've said, hey, I felt disappointed by this or whatever. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. And, it wasn't my intention, and I apologize. What can be done differently so that we can make sure that is minimized? But it wasn't, I'm not a victim of the disappointment. It was just a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, and it was dealt with immediately and addressed, and the change has been consistent and permanent. Right. And so we're going to have disappointments in life. You and I have had disappointments between each other, but you and I are the victims of each other. I'm struggling with what's the determinant of what trauma is and what they are basing that on. These people that have been discovered to have TIV or to be TIV. Yeah. I don't know if to have or be. I don't know what the word would be for that. Like
I don't.
Right. Now, what's interesting is they've attached this to they've attached it to attachment styles. So they're talking about that attachment style is a conceptual antecedent to TIV. And I highlighted it.
What's the attachment style?
Well, there's three attachment styles: the secure attachment, avoidant attachment, and anxious attachment. And secure attachment, that's associated with positive representations of the self as worthy, valuable, and lovable, and of others as available and trustworthy. Since these core beliefs should not be affected by daily offenses, which happen, secure attachment should be associated with low TIV, right? Because if you have a self-perception that you're whole in and of yourself and that people aren't inherently out to get you, those offenses are kind of going to just wash over you, right? Avoidant attachment is associated with experience of others as disappointing and rejecting, and a self-perception of being strong, capable, and independent with behavioral strategies of self-reliance. That's not even associated with TIV at all, because you're just like, I got this on my own anyway, so whatever, right? Anxious attachment is associated with a combination of being unable to regulate hurt feelings, sounds like borderline personality disorder, and being very sensitive to others' responses with an ambivalent perception of others that involves anticipating rejection or abandonment while depending on others as a source for self-esteem and self-worth. Thus, anxious attachment should be positively associated with TIV. So they've addressed, sounds a lot like a lot of the cluster B disorders, but they've addressed, let's see. Okay. So they did address cluster B disorders a little bit in here. They said, we posit that both narcissism and TIV are characterized by vulnerability to threats to the self, but that the content of these threats would be different. So there is some differentiation here as it pertains to cluster B disorders, or in particular narcissism. Narcissists present themselves to the world as strong and capable and talented, and relatedly, differently from TIV, narcissism was found to be associated with extroversion. I don't think that takes into account the various subtypes of narcissism, like communal narcissism, vulnerable narcissism, etc. But we can get into that at a later conversation. Therefore, threats are related to anything undermining their grandiosity and superiority, such as extraordinary abilities, achievements, or positive qualities. In contrast, the self-preservation of high TIV individuals is that of a weak victim who has been hurt and is therefore in need of protection. a considerate and conscientious person who must face a cruel and abusive world. Threats to high TIV individuals are related to anything that can undermine their self-image of moral superiority or elicit doubts from their environment as to whether the offense occurred, the intensity of the offense, or their exclusivity of as victims. These and additional hypotheses should be examined in further research. So there is a difference between TIV and a cluster B disorder. So that was,
Okay.
I'm glad that they added that in. They look the same on the surface, but they're different.
But they're different.
Yeah. But it's interesting, this idea of the entire world is out to get you all the time, and therefore you should be protected and coddled.
Yeah. Or
the perpetual pity party, I guess.
Yeah, the perpetual pity party, what I call trauma by proxy. That's the lack of empathy and the where. Well, a lot of these tie into that. You see this a lot in certain communities. I'll just leave it at that, where something happens to someone else and someone freaks out, like it's an attack on them, rather than this other individual.
Right.
So it becomes this.
I was traumatized by watching this other person get groped by someone else.
Yes. Yeah, that's an example. And then making yourself a victim of that trauma by proxy. And again, need for recognition. If you don't see it, or if you're the one doing it, then I'm obviously more moral than you. And then I get to act like a piece of shit to everyone, or to this person, or to people that were, a part of the trauma, whatever, because I was traumatized.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to relive it all the time. And,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rumination about it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me that that's a consistent personality type. That's a big statement right there.
Yeah.
This isn't, situational, because I think as human beings, we're going to have moments where we're mowing and, we joke about having pity parties. And I know I've certainly had mine, but they're transient. Right. And you go, and you get on with it. But this is like a consistent type of personality, which is fascinating to me. Like how? So the question then for me is there, or should there be? Because then we get into medicalization, and I know how you feel about that. But just like there's very little treatment for narcissistic personality disorder, is there treatment for TIV, or should there be? Or should there be just recognition? And if there's recognition, where's the line that we cross into ableism? And all these questions just like flowed into my head as I was reading this paper, and I don't have the answer.
Yeah, and mine went a little further, more into culture and these larger groups of developing more, or this passing of this personality type, like. We'll just leave it at that. How's that? I don't want to dive into it, but you have these cultures or groups of people that believe in generational trauma, or generational. My ancestors experienced this. Or my parents experienced this. Therefore, it's my trauma too. Even though you may not have been alive
to know what the basis for that.
Right.
I just don't know.
Right. So, and the article you mentioned was in Israel. And there were some ties to the Holocaust, but I don't think they were real clear.
Not real clear. No.
And they're not making this jump.
Right.
But something to be said for taking this analysis of this personality type into those tropes, or cultural aspects of people saying, right, well, is this something that's developed within this culture of a personality type, or the people who perpetuate this within my culture, just like you were saying, the chicken or the egg, are they in fact the ones who experience this? Because not everyone in all cultures have that same philosophy.
Well, I saw
or experience those generational traumas.
Right. And this idea of group mentality or culture, there was I think I saw it in one of the pamphlets, and there was discussion about it because at like Burning Man a couple of years ago, they had a poly tent, right? But heterosexual couples were, and anyone over the age of 30, I think, was prohibited from coming in there because heteronormative culture was harmful to the attendees that were going. So those people were prohibited. And I went, how, what?
Yeah.
So their entire like presentation was, well, we're victims of this, so you're excluded. We're victims of
Right.
heteronormativity, so therefore anyone that's married together as a heterosexual couple or over 30 are automatically excluded because your relating style harms us.
Mm-hmm.
And
opposition
I
to that is further
yes,
traumatizing.
yep.
And
You shouldn't
I'm
even say
obviously
anything about the fact that we're excluding you because that harms us too.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And my eyebrow went up as much as it can with my Botox. My eyebrow kind of went up, and I went like, "What?" Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to exclude heterosexual couples or people over 30, then just exclude them and deal with the fallout from that. Not you're victimizing us by being there, and you're victimizing us by calling it out. It's like, oh, okay,
yeah. Yeah, it's really this.
I think that's where the okay boomer comes from, because a lot of
right.
boomers are just like, shut up with your whiny shit, and the response is, you're victimizing me. Okay, boomer, or the response is okay, boomer, and us Gen Xers over here going, what? What's going on?
I was by myself. I've been by myself. I've been by myself for 30 years.
Yeah.
40 years now.
What are you guys fighting about? I don't even know.
What are you fighting about? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just been slacking off in the corner.
I'm just okay.
Right.
Why are you fighting? So, okay.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if this goes anywhere. It probably won't. A lot of it's a medicalization, so it probably won't go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's like one of the first of its kind, so there needs to be reproduction. Right. And
absolutely,
it was a small sample. It was like 248 people. So
yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if it goes anywhere. Again, I think I even made this post when this article showed up of it being weaponized by both sides.
Yeah.
Of this coin, where we mentioned, well, I have this personality disorder. I have TIV, so therefore, just you need to be nice to me because I see myself as a perpetual victim.
Right.
Like, well, no, I don't have to do that, but okay. It's good you recognize it. But the other side of it too is people saying, "Hey, don't be such a tiv.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
What's your problem?
Oh my,
right.
What's your problem? Oh, you must be a tiv. You must have this personality disorder.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to hang out. I'm not going to associate with you or
it's really not that bad. So shut up. Yeah.
Yeah. Or is another form that they can be stigmatized through this medicalization process.
Right.
Which I always bristle at that.
I know.
So.
Yeah, it's Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I can't say that I find myself leaning towards one level of weaponization and away from another, because both would be problematic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think I think being aware of this, maybe not for the individuals maybe for them too. But I think if we think we notice these traits in someone, rather than being reactionary either way, is to just take a minute, step back, and not go either one of those routes, right? Not go, oh, it's no big deal, you're not making a big deal, but also go or the other direction. Yes, it is. That's it's just a minefield.
Don't be a
It's a
victim.
minefield.
Don't be a victim.
Don't be a
Don't be
victim,
an asshole.
but don't be an asshole. Yeah, it's a minefield. Never mind. Okay, forget it. Never mind. It's just a minefield. I relent. Whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Human
sure.
interaction.
Yeah. That's why we have jobs.
I know. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, uh, in some way, and again, I had to really take a step back and check myself, right? When I read this, there was a little part of me that felt vindicated because I have been talking about this in sex communities, radical sex communities, sex positive community, and so forth for a while. And I have been deplatformed, screamed at, apologized for, and not just this, but also about like people with predatory tendencies, right? Both of these I've talked about, and there was a little, but there wasn't like a construct, a solid construct when I was talking about this stuff, and there was this tiny little part of me that went like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, thanks.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Gotta stay humble.
Right.
Gotta stay humble.
Well, if you are interested, you
Yeah.
should check out those pieces. There is one in Psychology Today that it's called the Victim Personality. I think you can Google it; it'll pop up. I urge you to Google the Wall Street Journal opinion piece, and then also read what other people have said. I do believe Joe Biden actually came out with, or Dr. Biden,
She
excuse me,
responded.
came out with the response.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do your own research. Don't just take what we say as, the gospel. But you can if you want.
Ultimately, it's our opinion too.
We would prefer you not to. Yeah.
we try to be balanced, obviously, and we're pretty good about checking one another, but even we're human. So
Yeah.
Do your own research,
awesome.
Make up your own mind. That's what's most important. So
yeah.
And be nice.
Well, be that little gray area between a victim and an asshole.
Exactly. You don't have to go out of your way to be a jerk.
That's right. That's
right. So anyway, that I think just about wraps it up. You have to get ready to get to the airport soon.
Yeah, I gotta pack.
I have to
like
take
last minute as usual.
This one right there. She hasn't gone for a walk yet, and she's being very patient, waiting. So, and then we're gonna hit the road.
Awesome.
Yes. So,
okay.
Have a safe trip when you're coming back.
Sunday, so be after the holiday.
Right on.
So yeah.
Have a
awesome.
good holiday.
Well, hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday. However you do that.
Be safe.
If you do it at all. If you don't, that's cool
that's
too.
Okay too. Like seriously,
Hopefully
we've only got. I keep telling people this. We've got a bumpy 6 months ahead. So, just wear your mask and distance, and just don't get yourself put in the hospital or anyone else, because there's not a lot of room in hospitals right now. We can see the end. We can see the end. So just be patient. We're almost there. So
fingers crossed.
Yep.
But hopefully it's different, and when they come out, hopefully it's different.
Yes.
I don't know, somehow.
I think anytime you have a moment in history like this, there's going to be a dramatic shift. We saw that after the 1918 pandemic. And I think we're going to see that this time. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. It's been kind of fascinating.
You think we're going to have our roaring 20s
I think
again?
Well, you know what? I keep hearing that. And actually, I talked to a friend yesterday who was like, oh, no, we're not going to see that till 2023. And I'm like, I don't think you know the capacity of people to want to run out and party as soon as they think it's safe enough on mass. Yeah. I don't think it's going to take till 2023. I think summer. When you have, because the CDC, Dr. Fauci, they're all talking about that they'll have enough to consider us as having herd immunity through vaccination by the summer.
Okay.
Right. So
But if we're gonna repeat the roaring 20s, we got to prepare so we don't have the shitty 30s.
Yes, please don't do
Holy
the 30s
crap.
again. Okay, like seriously, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be old in the 30s. I don't want to have to deal with that. Please don't do that. Please.
And for those who don't know their history, that's when we had the Great Depression
And the Second World War.
and the Second World War.
Please, let's not
we didn't join until the 40s, but that started in the 30s.
It started in the late 30s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please,
so let's not have that.
Please
one.
don't. Please don't. Let's learn from our history. Okay. Please.
Right. Roaring 20s, yes.
Yes.
30s, no.
No. Exactly. All right, you guys.
All right. Well, have a happy holidays.
Take it easy. See you next year.
All right. Bye.
Bye.